This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 80, where we are looking at season 1, episode 6 of Marvel Netflix Luke Cage. Suckers need bodyguards.
You think I'm holding back? You think I'm holding back? I'm out to save you.
Welcome back, Defenders, to episode 80 of Defenders TV Podcast, and we are looking at episode 6 of Luke Cage, Suckers Need Bodyguards. I am one of your hosts, John.
I'm another your host, Derek, and I definitely need bodyguards in that area of Harlem.
This is birthday boy Derek, by the way, everyone. He is, well, he's reached his 4th decade, on the planet.
Oh, gosh.
And so, yeah, happy birthday, Derek.
Thank you very much.
I hope all the candles fit on the cake.
No, we tried that. I think like after once you hit like 35, the cake starts wobbling, and you're like, "Ah, look, your cake doesn't even want to stand up anymore."
It's where the candles provide more greenhouse gases than than a coal-fired power station.
It's definitely when your family make that choice too, that each candle represents 5 years or a decade, and then you realise how old you're beginning to get. Yes, when we release this podcast, it will be 21st of October. It will be my birthday. And thank you very much for the really early birthday wishes, because obviously we don't record on the day of release, because we do have a little bit of editing to do before we release the podcast. But yeah, thank you very much. I'm kind of excited, I guess, to get to my 40th birthday.
Yeah, life begins at 40.
Apparently, I've been saying that since
40 is the new 20.
Yeah, Generation X.
Yeah,
X. There you go.
And I know what I'm going to be doing on my birthday. I'm going to be watching Black Mirror on Netflix and going to see Jack Reacher in the cinema. So that's my exciting day ahead of me.
So
after
the
this
first
podcast
part of
goes
that
out.
is really cool. The second part,
Hey, I love Reacher. Sorry.
Absolutely. And we are also joined, as always, by the third Musketeer.
woohoo! Yes, it is me. It is I, Chris. I apologize for my voice. I've had a very long week of talking, and this is the byproduct where I get that deep kind of, smelly cat Phoebe Friends reference, where it's just that deep gravelly voice.
We like it.
Yeah, he's got that sexy, gravelly voice.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I'm not playing this up. I wish I was.
It's very impressive, Chris. I think you should do that every time in the podcast.
I would, but it actually hurts.
Okay.
Strangely.
Okay.
Except when it goes strangely.
Men and women fall weak at the knees by Chris's gravelly voice.
Yes, Chris's gravelly voice.
Yeah.
Anywho, great to have you on board, Chris. Great to be back.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And I suppose with no further ado, it is just to remind our listeners, of course, that you can find us on defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes. You can search Defenders TV Podcast on any other good Android podcast catcher. Please subscribe, leave a review. It really helps for other people to find us and listen to the podcast. And of course, as always, please come and join the Defenders TV Podcast community as we discuss everything Luke Cage on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV Podcast. We're over on Twitter at DefendersCast. And of course, you can also leave feedback by email or voicemail. Just email us at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com and leave a voicemail by going to our website, clicking on the right-hand side of the webpage, and leave a voicemail of up to 90 seconds. And the web address obviously is defenderstvpodcast.com.
That's right, yeah. It'd be great to get a bit more feedback in. We've been getting some through our Facebook group and over on Twitter as well, but we want to hear your voices. We want to share them on the podcast as well, so it'd be great to get a couple of voicemails in before the end of the season. Got a fair few episodes left, and we're less than halfway through right now. So.
And now, actually, now that you know it is Derek's birthday, feel free as well to come in with 90 seconds of Happy Birthday, the song, or your version, or whatever version you want to sing of Happy Birthday. That'd be amazing.
That'd be pretty cool. I'd love to
That would be
edit
very
that all
cool.
together. That'd be cool.
Yeah. How many different layers can we get on top of everyone singing Happy Birthday?
that would be quite cool, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Any song about the slow creeping of time and age would obviously be very much welcome.
Appreciated.
The slow creeping of death behind him.
No Requiem themes, please.
I'm sure that would be appreciated by my boys here. Thank you very much. Yes, one final point is that we do release our episodes every Tuesday and Friday. So, as I said, this is Friday the 21st of October. We will have our next episode out on the 25th of October, the day of release of Doctor Strange. We will have our next episode of Luke Cage out. And we will be just in planning at the moment as to when we're going to be recording our Doctor Strange review, but we will have one out.
And of
during
course,
this
my
season.
birthday.
That's right.
Well, I'm not 40.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. We
He's
may be
50.
celebrating that on the next podcast.
Just so any new listeners to the show, in case you don't know already, we go through each episode of Luke Cage and provide our 5 points. Good, bad, or indifferent. At this moment in time, they have pretty much been all pretty good. We have defended each episode so far, but we round out each discussion with whether we defend the episode or not. I generally give it a little mark. Derek doesn't, Chris doesn't, but sometimes he does. But I think with that, Derek, what are some of the production notes for this episode of Luke Cage? Suckers Need Bodyguards.
This episode was directed by Sam Miller, a British director. He is well known for his episodes of Lufa, as they call it in London, and This Life and The Bill as well. So a long time working director in the UK. The Bill, yeah. No, he did 4 episodes of that. So it's a little police procedural, but a UK police procedural.
A dreadful police procedural. This Life, amazing.
Yes.
Absolutely loved it. And there is a character called Egg in This Life who is at the moment residing in The Walking Dead as Officer Rick Grimes.
That's right. And obviously the show Luther.
Oh, Luther. I thought
Yes.
you were saying Luther. I thought you meant the thing that you did your back with in the bath.
No.
You know,
This
the
is
dead bit of coral.
No,
or
this-
whatever it is. Sponge, maybe.
No, this is the one starring Idris Elba.
Yes.
Yes, the awesome British TV show. So another great director on board for Luke Cage. And the episode was written by Nathan Lewis Jackson, who is the playwright in residence in the Kansas City Repertory Theatre. So much better known as a playwright. A lot of the scenes in this episode were kind of much more out of a play. They were kind of set up and had 2 characters talking back and forth between them. I felt there was definitely, you could tell, it was evident in his writing that he comes from a play background. He's also written 3 episodes for the TV show Resurrection, which I think is an interesting little factoid because he worked with Tara Butters and Michelle Fazekas, who our listeners will know as the showrunners or lead writers on Agent Carter.
Yes.
Yes, so a little connection there. Very likely this is how he got into the Marvel world and Marvel universe and how he got that connection in there. So I thought that was quite cool. Good job there, Nathan. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us in this episode?
Sure. With the Crispus Attucks incident covered up, Mariah Dillard prepares to reignite her election trail with an interview with the media. On the other side of Harlem, however, by the docks, her cousin Cornell Stokes is preparing to exchange guns from Scarf to buy off Domingo so he can purchase the Judas bullet to take Luke Cage down. However, Scarf attempts to leverage Stokes, but his plan backfires and he is left critically wounded on the streets of Harlem by Cottonmouth. He is hunted by Stokes and by the NYPD, as his dirty past begins to creep up on him. On the run, Scarf seeks refuge at Pop's barbershop and help from Luke Cage as he realizes his enemy's enemy is his friend and his only chance at redemption. In his delirious state, having bullets removed by Claire Temple, Scarf tells Cage of his involvement in the murder of Chico and points him to where he can find his notebook with incriminating evidence on Stokes and his police payroll. As Cage and Temple, with the deteriorating Scarf, race to one police plaza to turn over the evidence and get Scarf to surgery, they are ambushed by mercenaries hired by Stokes. As Misty Knight arrives, after uncovering Lieutenant Perez's involvement with Stokes, her partner Raphael Scarf dies from his injuries. The fallout from Scarf's notebook is total, As Cottonmouth is arrested and his empire crumbles, his cousin Mariah's interview didn't go as planned, as her possible involvement in Stokes' actions is revealed and her reputation lies in ruins. So much going on in this episode. Like, it really was rammed full of effectively almost like a mid-season finale, like really tying up a lot of the storyline so far in these first 5-6 episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a real feeling here that Luke has won. You know, he actually kind of says it at the end. He's like, well, my job here is done. I've got Cottonmouth in prison. That's sorted. I'm off, you know, and it's only with the encouragement of Claire Temple that he stays in Harlem, you know, which I just think is a really interesting point that we're at. It's 6 episodes in, you know, you don't really get a win for the main characters in any of the Netflix shows. So far, you haven't got a win for them halfway through the season.
And absolutely. And in keeping with the theme of theatre, enter stage left, Diamondback, I presume. There was that moment where he's walking down the street with Claire Temple, and he's saying, yeah, you know, that's it. My job here is done. I've kind of cleaned up, Cottonmouth from Harlem and all this, and his cousin, Mariah, that, I don't know. I was expecting, like a Molotov cocktail to be thrown out of a window and him to go into flames or Claire Temple to be shot, just because Dillard earlier on in the episode says, well, if he can't be shot, they'll poison him, drown him, or do something. So I just kind of wondered whether that kind of hit had been put out. So I was kind of expecting, whilst it was all happy and funny, that, you know, in comes Diamondback and Shades and really just go to work on Luke Cage. But thankfully they didn't.
Yeah.
Because that would have scared the bejesus out of me.
Absolutely.
But I was tensing myself for that to happen.
Yeah. It definitely sets you up for that. Chris, do you want to kick us off with your first point?
Strangely enough, it's about that point, is that there was no cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Which just, and honestly, this has just got me so bemused almost, in terms of, this was a capstone. It's like, okay, 6 episodes, bang, there we go, we've cleaned off Cottonmouth, Mariah's reputation's ruined, like, but what we're so used to in this series and every other series we've got is, the showrunners and the writers are building these binge watching experience type episodes. So they're always in the last 6 to 10 seconds. You get something. So it's like, oh, okay, now I need to go literally that 30-second countdown on Netflix to kick in the next one.
Yeah.
It was just really strange. Like, and I'm not saying it was
Doctor Strange.
Everything leads to Strange. But I'm like, it's a bit weird for me because this was potentially the first one I went, okay, if we were watching like this like a normal person and not recording after watch and record. And I don't mean by normal person, I just meant binge watching.
Yes.
So like sitting down for like half a day over 2 days and just kind of going through them all. Then I think this would have been the point where I probably would have gone, okay, I can take a break now.
Yeah.
And knock off. So I'm actually very curious to see, every now and again Netflix do these kind of like, this is where people stop binging, start binging, etc.
The reports.
So I'd love to see some of those reports and see potentially what the drop off was after this episode. Because it did close the arc.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Now, I know there is a comment, and we'll probably talk about it, we might talk about it a little bit later on. There is a comment made that Stokes isn't actually going to go down for this, that he is going to be freed and not going to be prosecuted because of the higher ups within the police force. So that is kind of saying this isn't the end. There is more story to tell, which is grand. But I think you're right. This could have been a point where you had 6 episode series like we have over in the UK and Ireland, for our shows. And they could have come back next season with something brand new. And you're right. If you're binge watching, that means, oh, grand, I can take a break and I can actually eat food and I can come back tomorrow to this show. I was mentioning it, actually. I was talking about this earlier on to John, before we started recording, about something like Jessica Jones was entirely built, and Daredevil as well, actually, when we talked about that, Daredevil season 2 particularly, were both built on that last 10 seconds of an episode and why you'd want to push that button for the next for the next show, which was really difficult to cover when we were podcasting about it. Because you remember we were literally turning off, running up, recording, running back down, watching the next episode. Whereas I don't feel that impetus with Luke Cage, and there's nothing wrong with that. I generally, obviously, most of the shows that we watch aren't on Netflix, so you have to wait a week between episodes. So we're kind of more built for that way of watching.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because there's definitely something less urgent with Luke Cage. Now, I absolutely have no problem with that. I think in the first podcast I was kind of saying, it's a gradual style of storytelling. But it's certainly one of those things where I don't get that sense of urgent momentum like you got in Daredevil, particularly in Daredevil, which is so frenetic and quite, so dynamic in that sense. And in some ways, it reflects the coolness of Luke Cage. He isn't a man who will be rushed, and he will do these things in his own way and at his own pace. And I feel it reflects that kind of characteristic of who Luke Cage is.
It truly does define it as a very different show from the other ones that we've seen. It's another element that makes it very different from the other Netflix Marvel shows. Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, certainly, yeah, this to me was very much had the feel of a mid-season finale of some type. But yeah, certainly it looks as though, because of what happened with Wilson Fisk and the corruption throughout the police force from his exposure and his police payroll, that to have another one of these events. And I like that kind of connection between these shows, and to have another big sort of expose of this type on the police force again is potentially damaging, and a bit like the Crispus Attucks incident, that it will get covered up. There is a feeling that is going to happen here. Either that, or it will be, as I say, is this when we get to see Diamondback come out of the shadows? Because I think this leads me on to my first point, which is shades, or the lack of shades. He was absolutely conspicuous by his absence here in this show. And we even get a reference from, is it Zip, I think? Who says, where is Shades to Cottonmouth? I'll step up and do it. And, we get a lovely little sly back, from Cottonmouth. It says, well, the last time you did that, it really didn't work out. So, this, to me, this absence of Shades, in the same way as with the absence of Diamondback so far, in the same way as we've had the absence of Wilson Fisk in Daredevil season 1, tells you so much and really adds to the storyline, that this absence. I thought it was really good. He has gone to ground. The last episode, he's warning Cottonmouth of the problems of going after Luke Cage, and that he is damaging himself and he's becoming damaged goods. And here we have him effectively mess up again with regards to Scarf as well. And Shades isn't there to have his back. He wasn't there to try and tell him not to shoot Scarf, in that exchange. So where is he? Why is he not there? Is it kind of now just leave this guy to the sharks kind of thing? Is it that kind of cut the man loose?
Right, maybe.
He's become an absolute liability, which, again, as I say, is evidenced by him shooting a cop and not finishing him off.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I remember as well is that Shades also now knows who Luke Cage is, the only man in Harlem that does. He knows he's Carl Lucas. He's probably bringing that information back to Diamondback. He's also shared the knowledge about the Judas bullet, which is the thing that could possibly kill Luke Cage. So he may just be going back to Diamondback going, actually, I know this guy. I know what he's capable of, and he needs to be taken out, kind of thing.
Absolutely. And actually, you saying that again, it comes back to that final scene where he's walking with Claire Temple, and you're like going, is the Judas bullet going to come from one of the rooftops?
Yeah.
Because that's where Shades, he's basically going, we don't need Cottonmouth to take him out. Diamondback can take him out, and I'm the one to fire the bullet. Why, do you need that convoluted way of trying to kill Luke Cage? No. Diamondback can do it if he so wishes.
Absolutely. Or someone with a very good shot, like who would hit the bullseye, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Do you think we're going to see Bullseye?
I think we're going to see Bullseye in potentially season 3 of Daredevil, but I think it'll be a really nice setup to have a guy taking a shot. That's the setup for Bullseye.
Yeah, and then it just bounces off him.
Maybe, and lands on Claire, unfortunately. But hey, we never know. We never know.
I like the fact they called it out because I was, up until that point, kind of going, where's Shades?
Yeah.
As John said, the absence screamed louder than the presence, kind of. And I think it's probably the best way.
Yeah.
Because now I'm going to combine that part from my first point in that, like, they've set this capstone. Like, they've literally, that is the 6 episode arc.
Mm-hmm.
And they've kind of gone, okay, so here's your first run. Now, your second run is going to be that, who it is. So it's Shades, it's Diamondback, Black Mariah. Like, it's now, they've done all the backstory, the origin.
Yeah.
And I think that's the interesting part in terms of, we're done with the origin. Everyone understands what he can do, what he can't do, what his powers are, what his powers aren't, what the setup in Harlem is like.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's introduced it. If you're at this point, you're in, kind of, the acceptance. Would I, if I was Gio Coker, have said it without a cliffhanger? No. But, like, it would have been so easy to just have, like, Shades sitting there in a car watching them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would have kicked it over.
Yeah.
I think the reason for his absence will be called out.
Absolutely.
I think, like you said,
I do.
is he going back to Diamondback to report back? He knows who Luke Cage is, aka Carl Lucas, and he's like, oh, okay, maybe, we don't know. Carl Lucas could have a brother, a sister, a mother.
Uh-huh.
And Shades is like, okay, I know where he's from. I'm going to go back and get him, or get his family, and then bring them up, and then I'm holding hostage.
Yeah.
Because, and then, I believe there was just some forewarning or a kind of premonition in terms of what Mariah Dillard said to Cottonmouth in that drown him, choke him, like he doesn't have gills.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, well, like they're setting this up.
And they're also answering your question, Chris. What do you do with a man that's bulletproof? How
Yeah,
do you kill him?
exactly.
I loved this idea that it's Mariah that comes up with all the ways of killing him.
Yeah. Simple.
She comes up with poison him. If you can't shoot him, poison him. Why are you still using guns against him? I know you like guns, but why are you still using guns?
Yeah.
You can drain him. You can find the person he loves and you can squeeze on that until you've got the man in the palm of your hand, showing again how villainous she is. You know, she is looking for her in to destroy Luke Cage. So yeah, they're answering your question, Chris, once again.
Yeah, totally. And the surprising thing is, I didn't think of any of those points. I was like, yeah, like just stick him in like one of those magician vats of water and just like close the top. You're like, yeah.
That'd work. That'd work.
That would work.
You see, Chris, you are more of a Cottonmouth than a Black Mariah then.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
But it's just a great way of doing it because actually everything she says is so simple. Mm-hmm. Drowning, setting him on fire, poison, all of these things. It's absolutely approaching the problem from a completely different angle. It's the woman's perspective on this problem in that all the boys want to do is fire their guns, hold it out in a really cool way, and just blast and blast and blast.
And if those don't work, get bigger guns.
And
if those
here
don't
we
work, get
have
even bigger guns.
Here we have the new perspective, the different perspective, the correct perspective, which is don't use guns, as you say. It's just so good. And I love it when they introduce this kind of thing, to shows because it pulls you out of your own, sort of obsession with the fact that, he's being talked of as the bulletproof man and the gun is king in politics or whatever of the US. And you just keep thinking of the gun. And here steps up, Mariah Dillard and says, well, drown him, poison him, set him on fire, get to the people he's close to, squeeze him, like so good. Yeah. So good.
Definitely. I'm going to take a little left turn here on my next point.
Ooh.
It is your birthday, so of course you can.
Thank you. I just want to talk about the intro to this episode because I loved it. It's our second connection to Jessica Jones. What a cool little way of having a connection there. We have Trish Talks with Rachel Taylor, playing Trish again, on the radio, talking to the residents of Harlem all about what Luke Cage means to them. Some really interesting little discussions there. I love her point that she makes that people who haven't met Luke Cage have a very different opinion of him than people who have met him. The people who haven't met him are making up their minds and jump into conclusions. The people who have met him, the people of Harlem, i.e. they all know his heart's in the right place and they all know that he's there to protect them and help them out. And I love that she calls out the thank you to him on behalf of herself. She says, I thank you for doing what you're doing to help the people. And then says, I call him rather than the police in future. A nice little touch there, seeing another connection back to Jessica Jones. It was quite cool because she knows Luke Cage. She's met him. So I think that's quite a nice little touch.
Definitely. I really enjoyed this opening as well. It's one of my points with the Trish talk. It's a nice little montage, and I think it's also a reaffirmation of similar conversations that have been held in Daredevil and Jessica Jones as well. This notion of vigilantism versus the cops' job and allowing them to do their work. But it's done in a way, with the backdrop of Luke Cage jogging through Harlem with Trish Talk on the radio. It really feels like a great way of doing it. And I love one of the I think it's the lady's phrase, he's turning Harlem upside down. Who knows what's going to fall out?
Yeah.
So a real nice little way of expressing sort of the disruption that Luke Cage is causing in Harlem.
Yeah.
And maybe it's ultimately that Diamondback falls out because he's got to step up to the void of that's been left by Cottonmouth. I mean, it's increasingly now Cottonmouth his front ultimately within Harlem. There's just such a good little montage, I think.
And I think it leads really well into the conversation between Luke and Bobby later on in the episode, where Bobby's kind of going, well, now everybody knows who you are. Why don't you wear a mask if you want to protect your identity? Or why don't you go and play for the Giants if you want to get famous? And Luke's completely shunning that and says, no, I don't want that type of fame. And then Bobby obviously makes the other little MCU suggestion there, or the little Marvel Comics suggestion there, by saying, why don't you just say, I can sell, I've got superpowers for sale, I could be a hero for hire. So another suggestion to Luke that he should form the Heroes for Hire, which is quite cool.
Yeah, very cool.
I ain't a hero, pay me.
Yeah.
That's the one.
And actually, strangely, that was one of my points too. The MCU Netflix universe is expanding. It is building on so well done. It's just, I'm really enjoying this. And 2 days, Joe Coker and the Marvel Luke Cage team have done a great job of folding the events of the larger MCU and other Netflix shows kind of into one, showing that I think this episode potentially underlines it the most. So we have Trish Walker, Patsy Walker, and on her show, Trish Talk. And I completely forgot that she had this huge, amazing radio show that was like making her famous in New York. And I'm like, yeah, of course. She would be talking about it.
Of course.
She knows the guy. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think also the parallels between Cottonmouth and Wilson Fisk, proving how difficult it is and calling that out, and especially kind of going, we've already had the scandal with Wilson Fisk. We can't afford another. That's just, it's really good world building. It's just something I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And it's showing how, okay, yes, each standalone series is good and great and can stand alone, but they enrich each other so much more by putting these together and showing, okay, these are street level heroes. They're gonna interact. You're gonna have crossover, even if it's not a direct cameo crossover, like Christian Ritter coming into the scene.
Yeah.
Herself, having just Patsy Walker do the voiceover and that talk show, having, acknowledging the stuff that's happened with Fisk.
Yeah.
Already twice.
Yeah.
Well, once anyway. And saying all this, because we know he's going to come back and make Daredevil's life a hell.
Or he's going to meet Cottonmouth in prison. One or the other. But yeah, I do like that they've also called out Jessica Jones twice in the show as well. Without naming her, they've called her out as the ex-girlfriend. They've called her out as the rebound girl on the show twice already, you know. So again, it is obviously talking about his history, but it's stuff you don't need to actually have seen if you haven't watched Jessica Jones, you know. I'd still highly recommend going to watch Jessica Jones and listen to our podcast about it. But you don't need to have seen it. It's just nice references and nice detailing to bring these characters in. So they're doing a really good job of, as you say, rolling in these shows where it feels natural. It's not like, it's not like he's walking down the street and Daredevil's beating up some hand goons, with Elektra over on the right, you know?
That would be amazing.
Which
just
would be
kind of walking. Cool. And then he just looks, nods, and keeps walking.
Exactly. Like, I'd say if he goes to a rooftop, you know, like
True.
Luke Cage is the street level hero. Daredevil is the rooftops hero, right? He's the one that takes care of everything above street level, right? And then the Avengers take care of the skies.
Hovers. No, that's Jessica Jones. She flies. I'm sticking with this, people. She flies.
She jumps. Anyway. John, do you want to give us your next point?
Yeah. It's the unlikely bedfellows of Luke Cage and Raphael Scarf. I absolutely loved this turn within the show. This involvement of Scarf with Luke Cage, however uncomfortable, however much it was a convenient thing, you know, it allowed Luke to pursue his goals. It challenged his restraint about whether he would kill someone or not. It also exposed more of Raphael's storyline with regards to his son, who had died as a result of getting into his dad's police gun and shooting himself. So really tragic. And also just the fact that even though he was on the payroll of Cottonmouth, even though he was a dirty cop, I really enjoyed the fact that Misty Knight's connection to him, yes, she was going to bring him in if he had survived. You could tell that. But she appreciated that when a whole lot of other people on the force didn't bring her into the fold of the detectives after being sort of promoted from patrol. You know, she still had that loyalty to him. And I thought that was a really interesting turn, because I do think that in a lot of shows, it would be kind of like, oh, shock horror. I can't possibly imagine why you would have done that. But there was a sympathetic aspect to how she treated him, even though ultimately, if he had survived, you know, she was going to turn him in. And I loved the fact that, you know, as she cuffs Cottonmouth as well, just the look on her face of anger, you can see that she's blaming Cottonmouth for, in a sense, making Raphael dirty. It's like she's putting that sort of blame onto him, really. But I really thought this was a fantastic just turn in the story that I wasn't expecting. I didn't see this coming, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it added a completely different dimension to what had happened so far. And, you know, there was a redemptive quality to it for Scarf. Yeah, he's still dirty. He's still a bent and crooked cop, but you could see his motivation. You could see that actually he was trying to redeem himself with the Notebook. He ultimately comes clean about Chico. And, you know, he recognizes, yes, I'm a bad person, but I can take down an even worse person, and that is Cottonmouth. But I mean, ultimately, he dies from the injuries, from Cottonmouth.
Yeah. For me, this actually was one of my points. I feel like we're going to have a lot of overlap on this one. I did not like this.
Really?
I'm sorry, guys. This is me and my old trope stuff. Like, it was, as soon as he got shot, I was like, he's dead. He's not going to make it alive in this episode.
Yeah.
Like, they literally needed to have a flashing neon sign when he was lying up against the car going, dead man walking, gonna try and redeem himself, and no.
Right.
Because it was just like, okay, I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to they were trying to flesh him out a bit further. We don't know that much about Scarf
Absolutely.
up to this point, and they did it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of kept him as a very 2.5 dimensional character in this. I'm not saying he's full 3D. He was just like 2.5. Like he wasn't
not
full
possible.
2D or 2. Yeah, he's kind of like, you can look at him just slightly at an angle.
You have blown the scientist's mind, Chris.
I know, they're like, oh.
This one beside me.
He's actually holding on to his head. No, all we knew about Scarf up to this point was he was Misty's partner.
Corrupt partner, yeah.
And then he was corrupt.
Uh-huh.
And that he had a bit of banter back and forth. They didn't flesh him out. So they tried to go, oh my God, we want you to feel that he's going to be a good guy. So it was like, we want you to kind of somewhat have empathy for him and when he was trying to be good at the end. But so, okay, we're going to tell you that his son accidentally killed himself with Scarf's gun.
Yeah.
But it's too little too late. Oh, obviously, sorry. Horrible story, excuse me, I should say. No,
Yeah.
that wasn't. It was just, they brought that element in too late.
Absolutely. It's the Walking Dead effect. This is what they do on The Walking Dead. Every time they kill off a character, they give them an episode where they get a lot of reveals about the character where you go, that person's a nice, oh, okay, I guess we're not going to need to care about that anymore.
Exactly.
I have to say it got me because that's what happens to me when I watch TV shows. Once they give me some good detail on a character, I go, you know what? Maybe he's not all bad. Maybe he's just taking a bit of money to take care of himself. Someone's going to take it. Might as well be him is kind of the attitude. But I like that he redeemed himself. I like that we did have that moment with him and Misty's arms at the end of the episode where she's now lost, in a very different way, Chris. She's kind of gotten to that point where she's now lost her only connection to the police department within this episode because everybody else mistrusts her because of her relationship with Scarf. He's now gone. So I'm wondering if that possibly is another reason why she's being pushed away. She also has the worst look in the world. The person she's partnered up with to find Raphael Scarf is the other bent cop in the precinct. So that I was like, maybe you should look into not having a partner for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only going to disagree with Chris here. And
no, go ahead. That's the point of this podcast.
I know. But it's like, I think just because The Walking Dead does something like that, maybe too often doesn't mean to say that it invalidates it from other
of course not.
Shows to use it, say, once. It was redeeming him, but not necessarily making him good.
True.
He's still a bad person. He's still corrupt and he's still dirty and he still killed someone, but I'm not coming out of that thinking, oh, he was a good guy. I think his storyline was vicariously lived through Misty Knight to an extent as his partner, because she was someone who was a upstanding, loyal cop. To find out that then, she is unaware, because normally it would be that they're both in on it.
Yeah.
Then there's that conflict, and then she's able to at least look beyond the bad things that he's done. So I like that, and I think it worked doing it in this way for Raphael, because he isn't a big character in this show. He's an important one at crucial moments in time, but he's not, for example, Cottonmouth.
Yeah.
He's not Mariah Dillard. He's not Misty Knight. He is her partner. So, he has a really important function. I don't think his character needed all this explaining beforehand.
Yeah.
For it to, not be explained here. I thought it helped the story. Whereas I think with other characters in this episode, a bit more information sprinkled across the first 5 episodes would have helped.
Yeah.
I'm talking in particular about Mariah Dillard's storyline in this. Yeah, no, I mean, look, each to their own.
Yeah.
I felt it was really good.
So I may have kind of came across wrong. They weren't trying to say that he was a good character. They just wanted to give you some empathy for who he is.
Yes.
So why he turned bad. Like, they don't want to say, okay, he's not a good character. I agree with you on that. It's just, they were like, well, yeah, he lost his son, feels some remorse for him. Okay, no, okay, fine, he's dead. Okay, let's go.
You make
Let's
it
move
sound
on.
so brutal.
But it was just, if they had fleshed him out over episodes 4 and 5, giving him a bit more character, giving him a bit more scene. Now they may have, and this could be an editing process. Maybe someone just felt what didn't suit 4 and 5, but it was like, yeah, it was just like he got shot, and I was like, well, he's Chico,
but it's not
a plot device. He is a plot device for Misty, and I think you're right.
Yeah, and it's not about him. It's not about him. It's about Misty Knight recounting the fact of that aspect of his life that she already knows, so that we can understand why when he's dying and that she's really upset. And it's the same with the conversation in the car with Perez about, he's the one that gave me the chance, that taught me the ropes. You didn't need to know that in the other episodes.
Yeah.
But it informs the audience why Misty Knight, despite having a crooked, dirty cop dying in front of him because of his own actions, is still sad about it, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, let's agree to disagree slightly. He got shot. I knew he was dead. Not in a bad way. So long, good riddance. You've done what you needed to do. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry that we've lost Raphael, though, to be honest. And
really?
I don't really, I think I might talk about it in one of my points later on, but I don't really see why he wasn't dead at the beginning of the episode. I couldn't understand why Stokes didn't kill him at the start, but I think I might go into that now, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's keep this going.
Yeah, let me jump into that one. So Cornell at the start, once again, we see Cottonmouth's aggression and anger coming out, something that he's not in control of. So we saw Scarf take his ammo or take his weapons in the last episode, and now he's blackmailing them, so Stokes gets them back. And then Stokes takes his gun and shoots him 3 times. Yeah? He's on the other side of a car and shouts over at Scarf going, "The next time I find you, you're dead." And I'm kind of going, but you've got bullets in that gun right there. Why aren't you killing him? So for me, it seems like Stokes has realized his mistake at that moment. Once again, letting his anger get the better of him. And it's only when Mariah speaks to him and says, "If you let that guy live, everything we've worked for is done." That's the point that Stokes changes and goes, "Okay, I'm going to have to go back out, get my guys, take care of this cop, because now everything's going to fall apart." I think he realizes his mistake in shooting Scarf at the beginning, and then later on kind of goes, well, I have to follow through with this mistake, or else it's going to be a much bigger deal for me, and it will ruin everything about me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rookie mistake, schoolboy error.
He's made many of them now.
But I think that's where I can just about understand it, is that there's the guy on the other side of the dock that's obviously seen this go down. Maybe Cottonmouth panics and is he going to call the cops? Am I going to get caught? So, and maybe just expects Raphael to bleed out or something like that sooner than he did. Yeah, it's a weird one. And I mean, I suppose just because of his behavior in previous, in the previous couple of episodes where, Shades is trying to counsel him into a more, reasonable way of doing things, or things that just won't damage him, then I think it's, Cottonmouth is slightly, naive. He's slightly unhinged. He's doing, it was like I was saying on the last podcast, it's like he's doing this purely for the money, purely for the rep, but doesn't really have a full grasp on the kind of world that he's in.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah.
I know that sounds a bit weird. And so I could just kind of understand maybe why he left. But at the same time, to be a ruthless gang leader, and the fact that you've been spotted anyway, surely you would just walk around the car and shoot him in the head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even he must know that. So it was a bit odd, in terms of why that happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, look, I understand, and I think this is me sticking up for him almost. We thought Cornell Stokes was going to be the main baddie coming into this. So this is the showrunners and the showrunner, I should say, and the writers trying to pull that character away. basically going, actually, he's not. You thought he was, from episode 1, you thought he was this violent, amazing, charismatic, super, he was Wilson Fisk 2.0, or Luke Cage. He was Wilson Fisk LC.
Right.
That's what we were led to believe. That's what they wanted you. And then actually, we're seeing that just with a small thread being pulled from his jacket, he's slowly unraveling. And this was he thought he could get, it was another piece of evidence to go, he shot a cop.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought he was that untouchable, that he thought he was bulletproof enough that he did not need to kill a cop. He could just shoot him and let him kind of there.
Exactly.
And in broad daylight when a guy is screaming at him, by the way.
Yeah.
Which was eh.
Well, you can tell it's just his anger. It's his aggression that just gets the better of him. He just goes like he did in the club, in episode 5 when he gets told what to do by one of his guys, shoots him in the head. That's his instant reaction is like, get this guy out of my way, shoot him, kill him. It's done. And that's what he wanted to do with Scarf.
Yeah. No, okay. Sorry. And a quick aside, completely, that you just mentioned that scene, and I just, I rewatched it before watching this one.
Uh-huh.
One of the guys sitting on the couch is wearing a Legend of Zelda Triforce t-shirt. So the geeks, the gaming nerds, the true one of us is sitting as part of Stokes' gag. I was like, yes, he's a diehard NES player.
Cool.
But back into your point. Mm-hmm. We talked about this kind of capstone. This is the end of Cornell Stokes. He's going to go to Seagate, or he's going to go to the same prison as Fisk, as you said. Mm-hmm. This is Chapter 1 of Luke Cage, Season 1 is done. We're going into Chapter 2. Yeah. All the promotional material, everything about this show was he's going to go up against Cottonmouth. Yeah. Cottonmouth's a bit player in this.
Yes,
we've got Diamondback and we've got Black Mariah. Yeah. These are the two who are going to be the big bad. And the reason they're doing this and showing it is, as you said, his anger takes over too quickly. Yeah. He's not a cool, calculating leader that we thought he was going to be. Absolutely.
And I'm going to jump in quickly again.
Go.
Because one of my other points each week, as we've been talking about the episodes, is the name of the episode and the Gangstar song that it's named after and what it means in the episode. And this is the perfect point to drop it in, because the song this week is Suckas Bodyguards. Obviously the episode name. This is probably my least favorite of all of the Gangstar songs, I'll be honest. It's a very repetitious, standard gangster rap song for me. It's very much, this is why I'm great at my rapping and I'm so much better than you and you guys fall by the wayside kind of thing. But the central lyric for the song is fake MCs, they always act hard, but don't walk the streets without their bodyguards, right? So this is absolutely Cornell Stokes' story in this episode. It's basically saying he's a fake guy. He's saying he's the leader of a huge organization. Well, actually, he's not. He's not that good at what he does. He doesn't go after Luke Cage himself. He sends his guys out after Luke Cage. Yeah. Yeah. So he is totally fake here. He is the front for Mariah, as you say. He's told her that he's the leader. Turns out she probably is. She's probably going to be much more villainous. And obviously we've got Diamondback in the background, the real MC, if you want to use the same terminology. He's the real deal. We will see much more of him in the coming episodes, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So I really can't wait to see Diamondback come on down. Mm-hmm. Price is Right.
So that's the song for this week.
Yeah. Chris, what's your next point?
So I'm going to continue this theme. I want to talk about Alfre Woodard. Mm-hmm. She's so good. She's been delivering a fantastic performance all season so far. And we've talked about it on the thing. But this was her standout episode. Mm-hmm. Really just amazing. Like every other episode, I felt we were just scratching the surface. Mm-hmm. Like they were showing that she is multifaceted. And she's an angry person as well. Mm-hmm. But she's also a big thinker. Even though she is this angry, very multifaceted, kind of big thinking villain, because she is a villain in this show. Mm-hmm. She's trying to do what she considers right by her.
Absolutely.
Same as Stokes or Cornell. He thought he was doing what he was doing the right thing by becoming the gang leader to a degree to do right by her.
I think he just wanted to open up a cool club.
Yeah, that's okay. And it is a cool club, which I think is...
And I don't care if I pay for it with drug money and gun money. I don't really care about that. I just want to open a cool club for people to come and chill out on a Saturday evening and make all that money.
But it's really interesting as well that she reiterates the same thing that Shades had done in the previous episode, which is sell the club.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need the club, take the money from it. And I'm kind of there going, does that mean that has she had Shades' ear? Has she the one that's been trying to pass the advice to Cornell through Shades? I mean, whether that means, I'm not saying she's Diamondback.
No, she's Black Mariah.
She's Black Mariah. But what I mean is whether she's more connected in with Diamondback than actually Cottonmouth is. She realizes that her cousin needs this rock next to him, which is Shades, to just offer him cool, calm words of advice.
Interesting.
Is it that sort of controlling? Because I thought it was really interesting that she said exactly the same thing. And I totally with you, Chris, on this one. Despite, our war-torn comments, on Raphael, I am absolutely with you. I thought this was a really fantastic episode for Mariah Dillard.
Absolutely.
Her getting her comeuppance so public on the interview and all this kind of thing. Really, really cool.
Do you think that's also the reason why she got so offended with Luke calling her a spinster earlier on? That she is actually a bit more connected than we think with Diamondback. That she's potentially the hidden partner of Diamondback, or Diamondback is her hidden partner. In a way.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or she just doesn't like the word spinster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I did like a response to Luke just saying that she could take him any day. You know, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it was funny when Luke kind of came to her house and, you know, he goes, I'm shutting your cousin down and you as well. I was like, that's quite threatening. Like, she's an elected official.
Yeah. Never a threat, John. Never a threat.
No, I know, but still, like, I just, you know, okay, you know, fine line being trudged by Luke. Not in terms of superhero, just in terms of, like, elected official.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 you know. Okay.
Up for election official. Yeah.
I thought she was elected.
Is she?
Well, maybe not. Yeah, so maybe not then. Okay. But,
just normal.
I did think, you know, just that kind of unraveling of her in this episode where, you know, she had talked previously about, you know, you're losing money, but if I lose my name, that's me ruined. And you effectively get that right at the end. Her reputation is suddenly attached to this guy who's been arrested. And I thought Mariah Dillard's whole kind of arc here was really good.
Absolutely. And a huge shout out to the actress who plays the reporter. In these scenes with Mariah Dillard. I have to say, I love her face when she's exposing the possible connections for Mariah and the Stokes family. You can see her going, and this is live on television, and you can do nothing about it at all. And then the absolute glee on her face when she comes back in to get the quote from Mariah, because she knows there's no possible way she could have heard that Stokes was arrested, and she's running back in going, can we have a comment, Mariah? I've got you over the ropes again. A brilliant moment. I really hope we get to see that reporter back in some future episodes of The Defenders as well, because I think she's now a really good character that we're going to see hopefully do some more investigation in future.
That's it. You get the boom of, so which Harlem do you represent, you know, and your cousin Cottonmouth, not only is he known in the community, but he's also known within criminal circles as well. And we get to see Mama Mabel here, and we kind of get a little glimpse of that relationship that they had, where she calls her a dusty old bitch as the photo and the frame just kind of fall over, and it's like she's all jittery. I like the fact that in Dillard's interview we get those connections back to Mama Mabel, but also then Pistol Pete is introduced here as well, which is really cool. It's just a little quibble for me. And this is what I was referring to previously, when Chris and I were talking about Raphael. I wish the reporter had been in a few of the other episodes. This idea that, you know, there was suspicion within the media that maybe Mariah Dillard wasn't as clean cut as she wanted people to think she was. I wasn't entirely clear that the Crispus Attucks, breaking, that had kind of been
Swept under
covered
the
up
radar.
and swept under.
Huge. That's a huge thing, yeah.
Just because, it's such a big event, and the money being sort of recovered by the police.
Yeah, I think what could have worked here is the actual interview with Mariah at her home, where the reporter is pushing it with her and is thrown out of the house. I think that could have worked in episode 5, because Mariah wasn't in episode 5 at all. So, and there's nothing about the interview itself that was dependent on anything else that was going on in this episode. Nothing happened within this episode for the interview anyway. And then you could have had her rushing into the house at the end of episode 6 to get that question out to Mariah. You could still have that separated by an episode. It didn't all need to be in the same episode, and that would allow it to kind of breathe a little bit more, the weight and pressure on Mariah now that the media are starting to investigate her connections with Cottonmouth. Just to have it a little bit longer. Yeah, I definitely see your point, but love those 2 scenes though.
Yeah.
For me, her as a character, she's one of the most compelling characters on the show.
Yes.
Because she just wants to do right by her town. And in her head, that's by any means necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wilson Fisk?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what makes me think she will become Black Mariah by the end of this.
Like Wilson Fisk at the start of Daredevil season 1. By the end of
Yeah,
Daredevil season 1,
absolutely.
he was absolutely saying he was the one to destroy. He was the destroyer.
Destroy.
Yeah.
But the thing is that she's the hero of her own story.
Mm-hmm.
And people like the reporter now who are trying to pull back this curtain on the criminal background of her and her family are the villains. She'll
To her,
fight, to her. Like, they're the villains. And because of that, she'll fight tooth and nail to keep what's hers and get this town of Harlem back on his feet in ways she sees it. Like, It's all about her vision. And the trouble is now, when you take a character like that, I'd say they box themselves slightly in the corner as a writing standard, not knowing where they're going. Like, they probably have already mapped this out, but...
Well, it's all out there, so yeah.
Yes, but, from the way we're watching it, now that her reputation's ruined, she only can go one way, which is turn evil. She's ready to fight dirty to get what she wants, because they've ruined that public facade of her. So, they've either created Black Mariah as a character, this fantastic, or they've stumbled and maybe they wrote themselves into a corner kind of too easily, because they can only go that way.
Yeah.
They can't just make her now, well, oh yeah, that live interview, forget about it. That's the only other way. That's the only other way they could do it.
You say that, but in real life, there's been about as many accusations against a possible future president of the US, and he's still rolling. He's still rolling, She could still be rolling through these kind of scandals, as she may be calling them. Oh, no, I had no connection with that. I was away for the weekend when that raid happened, and I didn't know the money was there, and all that kind of stuff. She still could be rolling right the way through all of these scandals, and bypass it all. Yet, obviously, as we know behind the scenes, still needs to take out Luke Cage, needs to take him down so that he doesn't come back and attack her. But yeah, that could be a way to go.
I hadn't thought about it like that.
There are many parallels in this show to some real life situations. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I'll concede that point. My personal thing was that they had done this to tear down that public piece so that she becomes. And now Cottonmouth's out, she just swoops in, takes over his empire. She's sitting in the Biggie's desk in episode 7, the beginning of it, and she's like, right, I'm done. Yeah. This is mine now. She learned from Mama Mabel. She knows how to do this. She wanted the public side of thing. And again, actually, that's perfect parallel to Wilson Fisk. She started in the light, and now, by episode 6, she's like, okay, I'm done. I'm just what took Wilson Fisk 13 episodes, they've done it in 6 with her character.
Very possible. Very possible. Yeah, I like it.
Or, as you said, she'll do the way Mr. Trump has and just kind of roll with the punches and keep going.
I didn't mention any names.
No, of course not. Sorry. If I was to draw any parallels in real life, one could presume in a fantasy alternate reality, we'll call it Earth 616. This may happen.
666.
It could be Earth 666, actually.
Yes.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. John, do you want to give us your last point?
Yeah, it's the reluctant hero talk, between Claire Temple and, Luke Cage in the diner.
So good.
I really, really like this. And, you know, she's kind of saying, why hide it? What are you going to do with it? You know, she's expecting him to do the Daredevil.
Yeah.
And the Jessica as well. And it's this lovely aspect to Luke Cage's character that I really, really enjoy is that, you know, with great power, he doesn't necessarily see that he needs to have the great responsibility. Now, he has done that for this case, but by the end of it, it is, I'm done. This is it. That's fantastic, you know. Why is it taking Spider-Man so long to do this all the time? Like, that's true. You know, he's kind of like...
Because he's a kid. He's a kid. Luke
know,
Cage is a grown-ass man. Spider-Man is a teenager.
He's wiping his hands, kind of just going, there, done,
That's
dusted, you know. But
I said what I was going to do, and I did it. What more do you want?
exactly. I really like the reluctance that he went into to tackle and confront Cottonmouth and Mariah Dillard. And I love this reluctance again in the diner as, like, Claire Temple is as giddy as anything. She's like, kind of, go on, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's like, I don't really want to do this. It's not what I've thought of. And, you know, ultimately his response is, I'm not talking about this anymore. Gets up, pays, you know, leaves a few dollars and walks out.
Yeah.
And I really like that. And it kind of, a bit with, you know, with Bobby Fish's, as we've talked about before, you know, I ain't no hero. He just doesn't want to confront the destiny that other people see in him.
Yeah.
In a sense. And I really like that reluctance. I think it's really, like, different for these characters, I think.
Like we find out in this conversation that he thinks still he's a freak. You know, he knows that other people like him. You know, he's absolutely fully aware of Jessica Jones and her powers. He's fully aware of the Purple Man, Kilgrave, and his powers. He knows there are other powered people in the city, but he still thinks of himself as a freak. He wanted to go to Ireland to hide out, and he's been kind of forced into this situation. And yeah, I absolutely love the conversation. What I also love about the conversation is how it starts, because Luke is in exactly the same position that many men have been in, probably many women as well, where somebody walks up to him in a cafe and goes, "Oh, hi, Luke, how are you?" And he goes, "Hi, who are you?" "Oh yeah, I remember you." And then Bobby does that gallant thing that all best wingmen in the world do, which is, "Hi, my name's Bobby, and you are?" So he can get the name for Luke, which I loved. I think that's a lovely little touch where it's like that person you slept with when you're a little bit drunk and can't remember what their name is, you know? Nice little touch there. I also love that, again, we have Claire Temple calling out something because she's the person that just knows everything. He asks her for coffee. Yeah. Nobody can resist Luke Cage's ask for coffee. And her response is, "No, I saw you this morning. You didn't touch your coffee. Not even one drop of it. You drank orange juice. I know this is just a come on." So she did not fall for that.
She just says right out, "You know I'm not sleeping with you."
Absolutely.
Like,
What a way of delivering that line, by the way. With just this cheeky grin. Rosario Dawson nailed it.
So good. So good.
why can't coffee just mean coffee?
Never to Luke Cage. Never to Luke Cage.
And actually, yeah, so I'm going to kind of jump in here with my last point. In that, Claire and Luke sitting in a tree. K-I-S-S-I-N-G.
But she's not sleeping with him.
But she'll kiss him. It's fine.
With Misty.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Arc 2 is...
Just because it rhymed, that's the only reason I said it.
Because originally I did think this was Misty was the love interest.
Me too.
Of the episode, of the season, I should say. And I think potentially now it's actually, no, it's Claire. Claire will be the love interest because the banter between the two of them, right at the end, but also throughout, and especially the one scene where they're in like the coffee shop together. Like, it's just, she is very much becoming the Marvel's, the Netflix Marvel Cinematic Universe. She's the superhero whisperer.
Pretty much.
Like, yeah, she is. She spends the time, like, okay, to be fair, about half of this episode, she spends it reminding Luke of the good things he could do with his powers. Now, to be fair, he's been running around Harlem for the last 5 episodes, fixing things, but she's like, no, you could be doing so much more. Like, the mention of powers was cool. She could potentially, like, what else could you do? I have some ideas.
I love that. It felt like something out of Heroes. It's kind of like, I've got a person right beside me that's got superpowers. Let's go test them. Let's go test them. You know, it's that idea. This like little yippy puppy who's like, you're
Exactly,
right here.
yeah.
I'm watching you. Please go and show me some more of your powers. I saw you punch through the side of a wall to get us out of something.
And a van.
And a van.
Yeah, that was really cool.
I love that. And Luke's just like, oh, but I want this to be over. I just want to go back into hide. And she's like, oh no, come on. I've got some ideas. Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, she's almost echoing Pops' kind of call to arms for him as well. And so, like, yeah, it kind of makes it strange that, it caps off with him. Yeah, done now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Harlem sorted. I'll move on and sort out Hell's Kitchen next, because, like, that Daredevil, he can't do it.
Yeah.
Give him a break. But I think, she's a fantastic character. And I think that potentially she is the love interest of this now. Mm-hmm. She obviously calling out about the coffee. That's fine. Yeah. Maybe it's going to be, she's a reluctant love interest.
Yeah, maybe they'll get a coffee another time or something like that.
Maybe.
No, I think the whole point is that they're going to not get a coffee in this one. They'll start testing their powers. He'll get shirtless in the next episode. She'll swoon for a while. It'll be interesting. But I think,
you know what I do love is that the ladies in this show are definitely much more well developed, I think, than we've seen in a lot of other shows. I'm not talking about the Marvel Netflix shows exclusively, but I like the fact that, you know, Misty did sleep with him the first time she met him, and then immediately calls him out on his way of trying to chat up women, basically. Yeah. The next time she meets him. I like the fact that Claire completely calls him on this coffee gambit that he uses, to get women in bed. You know, I like that touch. I know that he's a womanizer. He obviously has a higher strike rate than a fail rate. But, you know, I like the people that are surrounding him call him out on it pretty quickly. So it's a good writing technique for the show. So I'm not sure whether we'll see much swooning from Claire Temple. She doesn't seem to be that kind of girl. But I think he could convince her with some proper conversation in future, maybe.
And a ankle grinder to the abs.
Yeah. Probably.
He's gonna do that. Come on, that'd be amazing. If just like, this is my standard pickup line.
So that is the weirdest pickup line. I still, as we said on Jessica Jones, I'm still not too sure whether that's a good pickup line or not. Hey, look what I can do, baby.
Well, it was more the rebound. So as he's grinding the edge of the saw, I'm sure they're going to be sparking off. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just going to create sparks in the middle of a home, potentially in Harlem, where before gentrification or anything like that, it wouldn't have been potentially old school masonry and wood. So flammable, maybe. It's like, oh god, I started a fire up the bed. I'm sorry. So to wrap this last point, I love Claire Temple. She's now the superhero whisperer. She is going to be the heroes for hire, the defenders. She's going to be their rock. She's going to want to bind them and tells them, you have the responsibility and you have the power.
Very much
You need
so.
to do this.
Very much so.
And who knows, she may get coffee with Luke. Derek, do you have a last point you'd like to close out this episode?
Not really a point, just a little note. It was just about one of the scenes in the episode. And I'm just not too sure what changed from the trailer to the actual episode itself. It's the scene where Scarf and Claire are climbing out of the underground or in the kind of basement area. And the car is coming towards them. Yeah.
Oh, what a scene.
I don't know. I don't know what happened. It feels like something changed from the trailer where we saw that scene of Luke stopping the car. I don't know, the way the car comes towards her, it just seems like she's standing too long in the light for the car to be moving. And then the fact that Luke was beating up four guys, underground about 4 or 5 minutes behind Scarf and her. And then he just appears in front of a car, which you can clearly tell was molded into that shape by the production designers rather than actually moving towards him. So don't get me wrong. I totally understand this is a TV show, but I would have liked to see a moving car hit Luke Cage. You know, a couple of extra frames of an actual moving car rather than him just standing in the street being surrounded by a clearly crafted car around him. I just thought it didn't work, for that part of the scene. I love the concept of showing an additional side of his powers. The fact that he can stop a car dead in its tracks. Pretty cool. but I just don't think it worked. There was something about it.
It was the scene. You remember the scene from Austin Powers where he's on the bulldozer and there's the goon. It's like, get out the and it just goes on for like 20 seconds. Okay, but it did. I kind of felt she was like, why are you stopped? Like, continue moving. Like, she's like trying to hobble with him. If you would hobble left or right, the van misses you. You're okay.
It's really weird. It felt less dynamic than the teaser trailer where we first saw that.
Yeah.
That seemed to actually be more sort of fluid with what it was showing. And that's the thing. I suddenly started to think, in the teaser, did you actually see the car hit him? I can't remember. Or is it just maybe it was the way it was edited? Yeah. It looked much more like that. I felt there was something different between what we saw here compared to the teaser trailer. Yeah. And I felt the teaser trailer actually presented it better.
It's because the teaser trailer tied it in with the car chase throughout the streets of Harlem. It was kind of showing you that the black car that was chasing them through the streets of Harlem was the same one that hit Luke. So it had that bit of dynamicness about the scene because it showed the car driving a little bit around the city before hitting. So, even just 2 turns beforehand, it showed a little bit more dynamic as it did in the final scene. But hey, look, sometimes we have a negative point overall. Quite a few positive points in there about the episode. Any little notes about the episode that you guys picked up?
So I actually have one, and I think we've kind of briefly touched on it. The scene with Captain and Misty at the very end. Mm-hmm. But they tie it back to Kingpin so well. And that thread in, and I brought it in like my point about MCU, Netflix, that kind of continuation. But it was just actually a great scene. Just very small, very good. And the calling out to kind of like, you're on the wrong side of the glass. You're not an official. You're not one of the paper pushers. You are a street detective. Yeah. That's his trouble. Like,
you investigate what we tell you to investigate, basically.
Exactly. And now the captain seemed like he was on her side as well.
True.
It was like, this is the world we live in. And I think, again, it builds this great kind of piece where, okay, the New York cops are kind of don't care anymore very much because they've got the Luke Cages and the Avengers and like, who are they in that world? And 2, after a massive scandal of the Kingpin, you toe the line. And I think that's, again, great way of kind of, they're just shifting, okay, this is where Misty's going. But the despair or the despondent look on Misty's face in terms of, what the hell am I doing next?
Exactly, Chris. What the heck is she doing next?
Absolutely.
Any other quick notes?
Yeah, I loved when Luke jumps out of Scarf's apartment and you've got the cracked concrete.
Oh God, yeah.
That was pretty sweet. I really liked that.
It really reminded me of the Hulk kind of moments. Yeah, when he just smashes up the pavement.
Yeah, really good.
Definitely not a way to not let people who it was that was in the apartment. You're probably going to go, oh, that's that guy that can beat the hell out of concrete that must have been in this apartment. Yeah, very cool. One quick shout out for me in my notes for Mama Temple. How cool is that character? I love that she's standing up to Luke Cage. She brings the getaway car for them. She says to him, I don't want to scratch on my car or my daughter. Unfortunately, the car didn't work out, but, it's
insured though. It's insured.
Yeah, that's it. I love that at the end where Luke Cage goes, the car's your daughter's safe and the car's insured or something like that.
I thought that was pretty cool. Really but good. I love that she stands up to this guy. She knows how powerful he is, but she's still going, if you do anything to my daughter, I will still come after you, Very cool. Like Mama Temple, like the introduction of this character here. Good stuff. I think that overall, that's the end of our points and notes.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, Derek, do you defend this episode of Luke Cage?
It's my birthday, so I'll go first.
You do.
Good stuff. Yes, I do defend this episode of Luke Cage. You know what? The pacing on this show is so different from Daredevil and Jessica Jones, which we spoke about earlier on in the episode. But I'm really liking how they kind of layer the episode together and allow it to breathe a bit more than we've seen in some of the other shows. there's a great moment at the end that I didn't even talk about in our points and notes, but the actual scene where Cottonmouth gets arrested, where Mariah Dillard finds out about what's going on, with his arrest. And as Chris mentioned, the Misty Night scene, all of those 4 or 5 scenes being played to People Make the World Go Round by the Stylistics. I thought that was a lovely ending to the show, to kind of see where everybody is in the city, and then finishing off with Luke and Claire walking and setting up their future plan to what they're going to do. It did feel like a big cap episode on the first 6, and could have kind of ended here. And I'm not too sure whether I would have had a big problem with it. I just want to see more of the show because I'm really enjoying the characters. That's what's keeping me interested to see episode 7. But as I mentioned earlier, you could have ended it here and had a gap of a couple of months and then come back with the other 6 episodes. So a very interesting episode, and an interesting way of doing it, different to all the other shows, but definitely enjoyed the episode. Chris, do you defend this episode of Luke Cage?
I do defend it. I have some points, obviously. So, like, I had one negative aspect in terms of what I didn't like, and I know, yeah, for our listeners, John is kind of giggling in the corner here. He's just kind of like, oh, you always have one. I'm like, no, I do, but I don't like
tropes.
I don't like, no, there's more. They blatantly signposted Scarf's death.
Well, they did get shot in the stomach, and that is a pretty...
It's a good shot, man.
Signpost.
Yeah, it's a good sign. Good
it's better than a little graze to the shoulder, which he then bleeds out from.
But no, then he fell in gangrene, and that's what
Episode 13, he dies in agony from gangrene.
It was just that I didn't enjoy. I didn't enjoy that they tried to flesh him out as a character when you already know he was going to die, and it's just like, we want to give you empathy. That being said, I still defend this because the banter and back and forth between Luke and Claire was amazing. The MCU Netflix world building, the street level heroes building, the I can't even call them Easter eggs anymore because they're blatantly calling them out. It's like, this is the same universe. Like, get used to it. Alfred Woodard's character as Mariah this is her standout episode. Yeah, she's now like, I'm probably ready to fight dirty. I am the villain of my own story. Well, no, she's still the hero, but she's the villain of this story, if you will. That was brilliant. The odd joke, I ain't no hero, pay me, fantastic. So I'm gonna leave it at that. But for me, it's a good capstone to 6 episodes. Yeah. I'm pumped to find out what's to be discovered in episode 7.
Absolutely.
Is it actually just black for like a couple more episodes? No one's told us, and it's just like, gotcha. But I'm interested to see what Act 2 has.
Don't worry, Chris. I know for a fact there is something happening in the next episodes. Don't worry.
Hey. So, John, do you defend this episode of Luke Cage?
I do defend this episode of Luke Cage. I am going to give this 4.5 cups of coffee out of 5.
Who can resist that coffee?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think at the end of this episode, we have Raphael Scarf dead, Cottonmouth is in cuffs, and Mariah Dillard is exposed and ruined. And Luke Cage is done. He thinks he's cleaned up Harlem. And I think the journey in which we get to that within this episode, I really enjoyed the unlikely bedfellows, as I say, of Scarf and Luke Cage. I love the fact that he's forced to help this person who he doesn't want to help. He understands that he can't kill people. You know, Claire Temple is their interaction. It is just really spot on. The whole aspect of the reluctant hero as well. And I think ultimately tying Claire and Luke together, and Misty Night, I think now, through Scarf, and seeing that I thought was really good. It's kind of what's to come as well, ultimately. I mean, with Raphael dead, you know, his dirtiness as a cop comes back to haunt him. With Cottonmouth, that naivety bites him and it ruins him. And with Dillard, the certainty that she has in herself is absolutely undermined. Yeah. And I think even then with Luke Cage, the ultimate point on this is that his confidence that he's done everything and cleaned up, I'm absolutely certain, is going to start to taste very bitter in his mouth when he realizes that this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I give it such, I give it my highest mark so far. I just think it's a really great episode. There's little negatives, I suppose, which I think could have been worse for the episode, but I think that they're just about justifiable why Cottonmouth didn't finish Scarf off. And I think that's because, he's not actually a very good crime boss, ultimately.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've seen that previously. It's not coming out of the blue. And I do think then with Mariah Dillard, I loved her fall from grace. Absolutely. I just maybe wish we had seen a bit more of that media involvement. Like we saw a bit in the first episode, I think, where she was in the park with the kids.
Yeah.
A bit more of that and a bit more of the suspicion that the media has of her and her potential links with Cottonmouth. But ultimately, I thought this was a really good episode. Yeah. And so absolutely defend this. And I think then with that, we can move on to some feedback.
Cool. So our first piece of feedback comes in from Claire Payne over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast. She says, I've watched the first 4 episodes of Luke Cage. I find the character really interesting. Mike Coulter is great. I actually prefer this show to Jessica Jones, which I didn't find fault with. Episode 4 was great. Loved seeing Luke's origin, and who cannot forget the terrible wig and facial hair. As always, guys, great podcast for episode 1 and 2. Thanks very much, Claire. Guys, kind of comparison to Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. Actually, one of the pieces of feedback that came in about that particular point from Jeff Childs, he says, Jessica Jones is very good, but I'm not sure I could watch it again. I could watch Luke Cage again. So how's you feeling about the two shows at the moment? We've talked about it a little bit before, but Chris, what do you think?
I'm, at this point, very torn.
Mm-hmm.
The pacing of Luke Cage means, at this point, I couldn't watch the 6 episodes again. I could maybe in a year. Jessica Jones, though, they're different beasts, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that's
absolutely.
the key thing.
Yeah.
Like, one's very psychological, one's very gritty, realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So, I could probably, actually, I don't know, I could probably watch the two of them again, but I would need to be in that mood for that type of show.
Yeah. I have actually watched a couple of the episodes of Jessica Jones again. Definitely. I haven't done a full binge of all 13 episodes, but I've watched most of it, actually. It really does. It's a great show and well worth watching again, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them are great for very different reasons. And I mean, the urgency and freneticness of Jessica Jones, because, it's all about a race against time to stop him from having more and more control. This is much different. It's much more gradual. It's him finding his own way of doing things, apparently doing them really efficiently within 6 episodes so far.
Yeah.
So I think, I could certainly go back and watch Jessica Jones again. And with Luke Cage, I think after this first run, I need a little bit of a break to let it digest. I remember this with The Wire. Wire, I don't think is something that I could immediately have gone back and watched because it's a gradual build up. And I think if you watch one episode, you do actually have to watch all of them. You can't, I don't think you can dip in and out in quite the same way, with this show, maybe like you can with Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
And in fact, even with Daredevil. But,
I definitely have some favorite episodes of Jessica Jones that I'm able to watch a couple of times. I'm not sure yet with Luke Cage. I think after watching through it, I think I might have a different opinion, but yeah.
No. And where we also got some feedback in from Derek Whitfield, again on our Facebook group. He's like, you guys are absolutely killing it with your first 2 episode podcasts. Your podcast game is going really well. Very strong. Keep up the great work. So thank you so much for the feedback, on that, Derek. It's really nice, to hear that, just so that we know that we're doing some good stuff, having some good discussions, and, hopefully, long may it continue, of course. So thank you so much for that feedback, Derek. Much appreciated.
100%. Yes. No, thank you so much. And I think, as John said, it lets us know that we're doing the right thing, that we're actually talking, when it's not just 3 friends in a room having the banter, it's also what you guys are interested in. You like hearing us talk and ramble. To be fair, well, maybe less so the guys, but I like to ramble, and I ramble a lot.
Right, we have to stop you there, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
We got some feedback over on Twitter, at DefendersCast over on Twitter, from Ashermoss, or Samford and Fam. He says, please explain what is racist or weird about standing against the gentrification of our black neighborhoods like Harlem. So this is in relation to comments that we made in our first episode about Mariah Dillard's position as to what she's trying to do within Harlem. And he goes on to say, seems you don't get the difference between Cotton and Mariah. He is nefarious for greed. She is for a higher cause than just profit. Chris, you take that one?
Yeah, so I'm going to take this, to be actually honest, the terminology of gentrification has changed throughout the years. It started very much as a positive in that you were trying to make a community better. So not just actually, you're bringing the community up in terms of building new, better shops, new services, more facilities, and that was great. It now has turned to a more negative piece. The bit I think I potentially was against in terms of Mariah's bit was nothing to do with being a black community. Like, it was nothing to do with that. It was there was an element of it's only for black people. Mm-hmm. And I'm very much I'm a huge proponent of diversification, or in terms of inclusion, everyone. So I don't care who you are, be you black, white, Chinese, Indian, like you are a person. And there's no better or worse person. There's no a man is not better than a woman. An Oxford educated person is no better than a person from MIT.
Definitely not.
Oh yes, they are.
No, they're not. It's like literally there used to be book smarts and street smarts. Uh-huh. They're still smart. Absolutely. There's no difference in between. So for me, it was very much the negativity that probably came out in terms of some of our topic was just, it was the keeping something for one group of people is wrong, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I think the bigger point here is that we definitely didn't make any comments about something about, standing up against gentrification being wrong in real life. We're making points about Mariah's position in this TV show, about what she's trying to do with gentrification, which is it's taking her neighborhood away from her, and there are lots of non-black faces moving into the neighborhood, and she wants to take the homes back off them to hand them out to people that she would have grown up with in the neighborhood. So that position on this TV show of that character, yes, it does sound pretty nefarious, and the fact that it's all being paid for by gun money, which seems to have gotten kind of lost in Mariah's head as we got to episode 6 here. She seems to want to get people to ignore that whole thing that she's being sponsored by gun money and by illegally gotten gains, so that she can promote this concept in the city of Harlem that it will be turned back to the way it was when it was in the 20s. That's the thing we were really calling out. It's this character's way of doing things by ignoring all the illegal activity that she's doing to get there. Well, sorry, but it's still illegal, love. You're gonna have to deal with that at some stage. And now she's been found out, and this reporter has pulled her down in this episode. So I think, it's trying to work out when we're watching these episodes of the show, what we're trying to work out is what position is this villain actually in the show. So what do they come from? What's the concept? What makes them a villain as opposed to somebody who is trying to redevelop a community and get people out of living in slums and those kind of things? Well, what changes it in this show is that, well, she's being supported by her cousin who is killing people all around him and is promoting gun running.
I think as well, I suppose, we're looking at it an episode at a time, and at that moment in time, you're looking at that character within the context of that episode and what's come before. And actually now, if we look at it in episode 6, when the interviewer comes into her house and looks and goes, this is a pretty done, like, amazing looking house, and she's like going, I've spent millions on it to renovate it and preserve the history. She's actually gentrifying it as well. In fact, actually, she is gentrifying the neighborhood of Harlem as well. And of course, the thing with gentrification is that when it was first sold, it was this idea of bringing neighborhoods up, preserving the history, cleaning up the streets, people buying these houses and renovating them and really keeping the area together. I mean, that has happened in Dublin. It's happened in London. It's one of the big criticisms of, say, Notting Hill and that whole area, where now people who used to be who were born there can no longer buy there. And I think what's happened is that she is actually also raising the property prices, and with gentrification, the negative side of it that ultimately comes in is that it raises the property prices way above the means of the people who have maybe lived there all their lives or were born there and want to stay there, and they can no longer afford to stay in those areas. And so it has a displacement, or it pushes people out. And that is absolutely the negative side of gentrification. I think what we see in episode 6 is that Mariah Dillard is a part of that process by spending this fantastic amount of money on making, the place look amazing, preserving its features and so on. So it's really interesting within the context of the show that stuff that she's against. Yeah. She is also a part of.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's the interesting thing.
Yeah. So thanks so much for that feedback, Asmus. It's really good to hear from you, and thanks so much for listening to the episode. Another piece of feedback we got from over on Twitter was from Paul Jones saying, "Good to have you back for Luke Cage. I'm currently on episode 9. Blimey, things escalated. Is Cotton met one of the best MCU villains?" he says. I said we're only on episode 5, so right now he's absolutely brilliant, loving his seething rage. And Paul says, Episode 5, Long Live the Chief, best opening of any Marvel Netflix show ever. Yes. Absolutely. We talked about it on episode 5 podcast, which Paul obviously hasn't heard because we haven't released it as we're recording episode 6. But anyway, absolutely loved that opening to the episode. And is Cottonmouth one of the best Marvel Cinematic Universe villains?
Let's wait and see.
I liked him. I absolutely love Mahershala Ali's performance as the character. He's absolutely top notch. He's right up there with Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, with David Tennant as Kilgrave. Is he a good villain? Not so much. He's already in prison.
He's the best flawed Marvel villain.
There you go.
Or the portrayal of a flawed Marvel villain with regards to maybe not the best crime boss.
Mm-hmm. And to our final piece of feedback. We got a piece of feedback in from Keith Walker over on our Facebook group. As always, when you join our Facebook group, we will always welcome you with a warm welcome. Keith says, "Thanks so much for the warm welcome, guys. Not gonna lie, I was a bit apprehensive about listening to a Luke Cage podcast that featured no person of color, but I'm really happy I gave you guys a listen. I love how you explored the etymology of the N-word, as well as understand the musical and book choices the Coker put into the series. You guys are top notch, and after searching feverishly for a good Luke Cage podcast, I'm very fortunate to have found a great one instead. Keep up the great work, guys. This show means a lot, especially to people of color, and I appreciate you taking this podcast seriously."
Thank you so much, Keith. Absolutely. I think in all our podcasts, like with Jessica Jones, where you had a central female character, and with any of the shows that we cover, and in particular this one, we try and come at them from a fair, a balanced way. We talk about the good stuff. We talk about maybe the negative stuff, but we don't necessarily say that negative stuff is without basis, and we never linger on it too much, I think, to be just out and out critical for the sake of being that. We hope it's balanced and provides, some really good discussion points for people to come back. So your comments are really appreciated, and really want to thank you for putting that time into writing that feedback for us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I really appreciated this message, because one of the things that we talked about offline before we started Luke Cage was this is a tough topic to discuss. And especially we watched episode 1 and I was like, this is harder. Like that word had so much history and commentation and emotion baggage attached to one word. Everything about this show, and we also had a similar discussion about Jessica Jones when we were talking about the female leads and the strong female presence and the themes of feminism. And we're an inclusive bunch. We also like taking, as John said, these episodes as they're given to us, and we like dissecting them and trying to think what the writers were thinking about. And I got very kind of emotional on this, and I kind of went, this is fantastic, because this is what we want. We want other people to understand that, yeah, okay, if we're negative about one aspect, like some of, like the odd time, like Gangstar's music, I could take it or leave it, but then Long Live the Chief is an amazing song. Absolutely. And I'm like constantly attached to it now, and that's just one small sliver of what makes this show great.
I always feel like stopping and just giving someone a salute while I'm listening to that song. It's awesome. They have no idea what's going on because they can't hear what I'm listening to, but yeah.
And you'd be like, they're like, okay, that's interesting. This meant a lot, I think, to all of us in terms of we're never sure. We always want to be sure that we're fair, we're inclusive. We're not talking about something that we don't know. And to some degree we are, in terms of we have no understanding that could be of what it is to live in Harlem, I should say, we also have no opinion or history or understanding of what it is to be bulletproof. But we still try and look at it in a knowledgeable, intellectual way. And this kind of makes it worthwhile.
Yeah.
This made us happy.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, thanks so much for the feedback, Keith. At the end of the day, we're covering these shows because we know how much work and how much passion the people behind the scenes are putting into these shows, and what we like talking about is episodes of TV shows that we're into, Luke Cage stands up there alongside all the other shows that we've seen so far. We're watching it because we love comic book TV shows. We've all seen other TV shows that we haven't liked so much, especially ones based on comic books, and we haven't covered those for podcasts. So this is another one of the shows that is definitely adding to our knowledge. And the people behind it have put so much into it and so much knowledge of the community they're talking about, the area they're talking about. It's so much fun at times to see, this episode had a great scene of Luke jogging through Harlem. So you get to see a lot of the neighborhood and a lot of the area. That's really cool. I really enjoyed those types of things. So thanks so much for that feedback, Keith. If anybody does want to leave us any more feedback, obviously you can do that over at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast. I think that's about time to wrap us up for this long episode, guys.
Absolutely. I think with that birthday podcast in the bag, I think it is to say thank you so much again for listening, and we'll be with you next time.
Whoop whoop. Thank you very much, guys. Happy birthday, Derek.
Happy birthday to you.
Aww. Thanks, guys. We'll be back on Tuesday the 25th with episode 7, Manifest. Looking forward to that one.
Speak to you next time. Bye.
See you soon, guys. Bye.
Bye.